Okay, before we go back to what we were doing yesterday, or to continue, I'm going to close the door. I have a question that I think is going to sound like a not a good question, but I feel like answering it is going to help us to clarify the entire parak, okay? Or at least the second half of the parak. So the way the Rambam started off this section in Perek Gimel Talmud Torah is Misha Nasao Libo L'Kaim Mitzvazo Karoila Lios Mukhtar B'Kisr Torah. Right. So someone whose heart lifts him to fulfill this mitzvah properly for it and to be crowned with the crown of Torah. So here's my question. And the rest of the parak is saying how to do that, right? My question is, what would the Rambam say if the reader were reading the Mishnah Torah and said, well, that's not my interest. I'm going to skip to the fourth parak. Exactly. Yeah, right. And it's totally fine to not be interested in the Kesser of Torah, right? But the question is, we've been kind of focusing on the relevance of this for someone who wants to acquire the Kesser of Torah because that's the audience. Question is, what does everyone else get out of this? You don't understand the question, or? That's part of my question. Why is it in Mishnah Torah? But I'll give you an analogy, right? Is that I think we would all agree that if I had a book on how to become the world's best piano tuner, just as a random example, we can all see the need for why piano tuning is good. And we can all see the need for there to be piano tuners. But I'm not going to read a treatise on how to be the best piano tuner, and maybe if I own a piano, I'll see how can you do basic level piano tuning for your own needs. But I'm not going to be looking for the best. So the question is what does this do for someone who is nowhere close to or not interested in getting the Kesser Shel Torah?
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if you know the problem.
That's also true. That's a clever answer. Yeah, so then maybe switch it to someone who's not. Yeah. That's also true, right? Okay, but so can you elaborate on why he should read it, even if he's not And I'll give you. I'll strengthen. Yeah. Where they want to try to get the Kesser Shel Torah?
Yeah.
Really?
Not really.
Because I mean, yes and no. It's the highest level of the mitzvah, but even the way the Rambam. Right. Yeah, but your Makayim mitzvos. I mean, well, here let's put it this way: Rambam does not do this for tefillah, right? Tefillah can be done on the highest level, right? But the Rambam does not have a thing of someone who wants to be the highest level of mispala, and I'm sure you could find other examples of this also. And I'll say that even the way the Rambam introduces it, he doesn't say anywhere. I mean, maybe he says it later on. We haven't gone there yet. That this is a level for which everyone should strive. For example, in what we read in the end of Hilchos Tshuva by Ovid Meir and Ovid Me'ava, he did say that there's the masses, but we want to try to get them to the level where they're Ovid until they are Ovid Me'ava. Here, he doesn't really say that we're trying to get people, and the way he introduces it is Misha Nasao Libo L'Kaim Mitzvazo Karoila, someone who wants to do this, then this is what they should do, And I agree with you in principle, it'd be great if every Jew wanted to do this, but the Rambam doesn't really seem to present it in that way.
Can you imagine what the Rambam? Right. Right. Okay, fine. So you'd say the same question there, right? Yeah. Sure. I'll ask you another question, and this is honestly where my question came from. This is the original form of the question is, so I have, I think, I don't know, everyone probably has their own favorite of the Chamisha Chomshei Torah, in a ranking, So I really have not
liked learning the second half of Sefer Bereshis. So by second half, I mean pretty much everything after the Mabul, or English after Migdal Bavel. Okay, and the it was it. It's more than that. It's way more than that. Yeah. Like I like all the stuff in Sefer Bereshis about humanity, and I have a very hard time relating to the stuff after that. And the reason why is because at least the way that we often, and maybe this is just a function of the fact that the way this is taught is like in world of Midrash, but like I'll blame it on that, which is that the Avos are depicted as being on such an extremely different plane of existence that I have a hard time relating to the ideas in the same way that I do, for example, with Mishlei. Like Mishlei is about how everyone can be involved in Chachma and Tzedek, and I feel like I could sit there with Shlomo Melech and have a conversation with him, and like we would be able to like talk about the same stuff. I feel like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are like out of my league. And regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, with Sefer Shemos, obviously Moshe Rabbeinu is even more out of my league than the Avos. But I feel like because I'm part of the Am, and Sefer Shemos is the beginning of the story of the Am, then I can relate to it more. So this is always a feeling that I used to have about the second part of Bereshis. And then I used to have this feeling about Pirkei Avos as well, because Pirkei Avos is also aimed for people who want to be a chassid, and that's like on a very high level, So that's kind of the place where my question's coming from, even though I'm anchoring it into this part in the Rambam. Yeah, Joseph?
When you're saying that reading Bereshit through the lens of Midrash, they seem like a different one.
Correct. Like if you go according to the more pshat-based Mefarshim, then they do make mistakes and do actions that are much more human, which. Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm saying hard to relate to. Like. Okay. Yeah. So then ignore that. Then I'm just asking a question on the Rambam.
Yeah.
Or I'll make the question even smaller. Okay, what if someone was learning this with the Rambam and the person said, "Oh, this is about how to get the Crown of Torah. Let me master all the basics and then I'll go back and read this." The Rambam would presumably say, "No, learn this now." Why? What arguments would he give?
I guess as a part of it, like I can't think of anything specific in the early part. Let's say like the purpose of existence is.
Okay, I think that's on the right track. I have two answers, by the way, which might be one, but that's definitely on one prong. Yeah. Yeah. In the Hakdama to the Pirush Mishnayos, you mean? Yeah. Okay, so okay, all right. So let me elaborate on that, because I think it is in the same direction that I'm thinking here. Is that like we are all involved in the endeavor of Talmud Torah, okay? But you cannot have an accurate notion of what you're doing unless you see what the pinnacle looks like. Okay, and I'll give an analogy, right? Is if you have a kid in a I'll give two analogies, okay? Kid in a martial arts class who's like a yellow belt or a white belt, So you can train him in certain things, but if he doesn't know if he hasn't seen martial arts movies and doesn't know what like an expert martial artist is, there's going to be a lack in his ability to relate to the activity right now. Or another thing is if you start learning a musical instrument and you're teaching it to someone who has never heard music, you're just teaching them the scales and like the basic things, but they've never really heard what a real musician sounds like. There's going to be a distortion in like what the activity is that they're involved in. And so seeing what the end goal looks like, or the end product looks like, is actually going to give them something that like a benchmark, not that is necessarily within their grasp, even though, the Rambam says it's in their grasp. It's going to give them something that can give their own learning direction, because they'll see what the pinnacle actually like looks like. And it's not just saying you can't show them what the highest levels of Torah learning look like, because you can't see that. Just like I can't show you what the highest levels of calculus look like unless you're like on the level of mathematical knowledge to appreciate that. But what I can do is I can paint a portrait to you of the Talmid Chacham, like the person who has the Kesher Shel Torah, and create the ego ideal to strive for, or to at least like like measure yourself in accordance with. And I'd say that this is not only, and here's my second prong of the answer, which might be the same. Not only is this like essential for the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, this is essential to the mitzvah of the other mitzvah in Hilchos Talmud Torah, which is, let me just quote it, which is, the second one is l'chabed melamdeha v'yode'eha, to honor those who teach it and those who know it. Meaning that even if I'm not cut out to be a person with a Keser Shel Torah, I need to know what a top level Talmid Chacham looks like. And that's not just for me. That's, I mean, for me to fulfill this mitzvah of like being able to give true honor to someone who has mastered Torah, but also to create in the nation a reverence for people who have the Keser Shel Torah. Like, this is not just a mitzvah. You know, we said before how the main part of this mitzvah is not for the individual. The main part of this mitzvah is to pass on the Masorah in the nation. Part of passing on the Masorah in the nation is not just teaching them the contents of Torah, but painting for them what it looks like to be a Talmid Chacham. And that's why the Rambam in the Hakdama to the Pirush Mishnayos, says one of the purposes of Pirkei Avos is to show you what the Baalei Masorah looked like, and that they were ethical people, and that they were people who were highly perfected in ways other than their knowledge. You know, so I think all of that, like, a person who's nowhere near like tackling the task of trying to get the Keser Shel Torah is going to be benefited in many ways, individually and as a building block of the nation, by seeing like what it looks like and what it takes and what sacrifices you have to make to get to this level of Keser Shel Torah. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. So maybe that's why the halachic aspect of my answer is he does it for Avas Hashem. By which one? Say again. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason is because you don't have every mitzvah corresponding to a completely different personality type. You know, like you completely changed as a gavra when you do this mitzvah. You know, like you could do a ma'aseh mitzvah to perfection. You know, but a gavra who's mukhtar b'keser shel Torah is a different phenomenon. You know, and same thing like oved me'ahava is a different phenomenon. You know, a navi is a different phenomenon, but not in all these other mitzvahs. Yeah. All right. So I thought that was important to say. Okay. One more, let's reread the last halacha from yesterday, but I want to go on to new halacha. I just saw one more like nuance here. So in Zion, Shema Tovar, Ad she'ekabetz mamon ve'exar ve'ekra. I'll wait until I accumulate money and then I'll go back and read or learn. Ad she'ekne ma she'ani tzarech, until I buy what I need, and then ve'epane is me'asakai ve'exar ve'ekra, and then I'll go back and learn. If this thought occurs to your heart, you will not merit the crown of Torah, lo'olam, ever. And don't say when I'm free, I'll learn, maybe you will not be free. Okay, so Oren asked the question yesterday of im tale machshavazo al libacha. If this thought occurs to you, then you're not going to get the Keser Shel Torah. So he said, what's the deal with that? Like, really, if I have this thought, then I'm not going to get the Keser Shel Torah. So I answered yesterday, it doesn't mean that if the thought arises in your mind, okay? It means like if you are trying to implement this plan, right? And I mentioned actually in Mishlei this morning that, maybe I mentioned this yesterday also, but machshava means actionable thought. It's not just like a hear-hor thought, you know? But I have another answer, which is maybe the Rambam does mean it literally, that if you have had this machshava, then you're not going to be zocheh to Keser Shel Torah. In other words, not the thought enters your mind, but if this plan develops, then you're not going to have the Keser Shel Torah. Okay, so I'm going to try this out. I don't know if it's going to make sense. Maybe what he means is like this: is that like it's not the fact that you are striving to implement this plan that's going to withhold your Keser Shel Torah. It's the very fact that your energy is flowing to mammon enough where you have concocted this plan. A person who finds himself trying to make a plan to get the Keser Shel Torah and mammon, that is like a litmus test that he already has enough energy flowing to mammon that he's not in the parsha of the Keser Shel Torah, which is different. It's more machmir than what I said yesterday. Yesterday is I said, if you're working on trying to make this plan, like implement it, I'm saying, no. Even if like you're scheming about this, if in your daydreams, your daydream about having the Kesher Torah and like having your mammon, that already means that you're not like, you got to like work on your attachment to mammon or your attachment to Torah, or both. So I thought that was better shot of Imtale Machshavzo al Libacha. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. I mean, I'll tell you why another reason why I went like this is because it was also trying to answer that question of, he already said, Im Yasim Alibo Shiyikne Torah Ima Osher Vakavod. That's the guy who's actively trying to pursue Torah and Kavod and Osher. This is Im Tale Machshavazo Al Libacha. And so like that's a different Lashon. And here, I don't think that Lashon the Rambam is getting from Chazal. Okay, in fact, if you want to double check me, see if that phrase Im Tala Machshavazo Al Libacha in Gimel Zayin is from Chazal, because a lot of the phrases are, but if that's something that the Rambam himself is saying, then I'm more inclined to think that he's trying to bring out a new idea. While you're looking for it, I have another diuk, which I don't know what to make of it, but just something. Yesterday, I framed it as I'm going to make a lot of money, then I'm going to learn. And then in the middle of halacha zayin. Yeah. Okay. Abbas is in New Zealand, yeah. So I'll say what I was going to say is I phrase the second one as until I get what I need. He doesn't say until I get what I need. I mean, he says acquire, right? Until I acquire or purchase what I need. Now, to me, that is different than until I as parnas as atmi or something like that. Until I take care of my parnasa. I don't know if it's reading too much into like ekna, like what's until I buy or acquire what I need. I don't know what to make of it. I just wanted to point it out. Yeah. Yeah. I did have a thought. It sent me on an association though, which I'm going to hold off on deploying until Yosef can confirm or deny. I'm going to pause this one second. Yes, Yosef has not found a source in his annotated Mishnah Torah for Im Tale Machshavazo Al Libacha, which might mean that that's the Rambam's own phrase, which means it's perush, and that makes me more convinced of my explanation. But going back to what I was pointing out here, so this might just be an association on my part. So yesterday I was saying that that's until I get my needs, and I was bothered. Shouldn't a person take care of his needs before he tries to get the Kesher Torah? If you're not supporting your family and your own needs, that's irresponsible, and you ain't something called an ace. Okay, so I do have an answer based on this, but it's speculative. Okay, the answer is based on the Mora Nevuchim. Okay, 3:12. Okay, and you don't have to get more Nevuchim because I have my translation, which is better. So he's talking about. No, it's my own translation. It's my combo. Yeah. It's in 3:12. The context is the three types of ra.
I was like, do you know Judeo-Arabic?
No. When my translation of the my synthesis translation, which means taking all the aspects I like from Pines, Friedlander, Kafif, Schwartz. Yeah, so I've done that enough times that I said it's worthwhile to just put this. And maybe this is I don't know if this how much this is from one of them or the other. Anyway, so he's talking about the harm that you cause yourself. Okay, and he says that this class of ra'os, this class of evils, originates in man's flaws, such as excessive desire for eating, drinking, and sex, indulgence in these things in undue measure or in improper manner, or partaking of unhealthy food. This course brings disease and afflictions upon body and soul alike. The sufferings of the body in consequence of these ra'os are well known. Okay, those of the soul are twofold. First, such ra'os of the soul are as the necessary consequence of changes in the body, insofar as the soul is a force residing in the body. It has therefore been said that the properties of the soul depend on the condition of the body. That's not really our topic, but plain shot is if you don't treat your body carefully, you're going to affect your ability of your soul to engage at peak capacity. For example, you're going to get sick and you're going to impair your ability to think. Secondly, the soul, when accustomed to superfluous things, acquires a strong habit of desiring things which are neither necessary for the preservation of the individual nor for that of the species. This desire is without limit, whilst things which are necessary are few in number and restricted within certain limits, but what is superfluous is without end. Now he gives great examples. For example, you desire to have your vessels of silver, but golden vessels are yet better. Others have even vessels of sapphire, or perhaps they can be made of emerald or rubies, or any other substance that could be suggested. Those who are ignorant and perverse in their thought are constantly in trouble and pain because they cannot get as much of superfluous things as a certain other person possesses. They, as a rule, expose themselves to great dangers, for example, by sea voyage or service of kings, and all this for the purpose of obtaining that which is superfluous and not necessary. When they thus meet with the consequences of the course they adopt, they complain of the decrees and judgments of God. They begin to blame the time, and they wonder at the lack of justice in its changes, that it has not enabled them to acquire great riches with which they could buy large quantities of wine for the purpose of making themselves drunk, and numerous concubines adorned with various kinds of ornaments of gold, embroidery, and jewels for the purpose of driving themselves to sexual indulgence beyond their capacities, as if the whole universe existed exclusively for the purpose of giving pleasure to these low people. Okay, so he's talking about like this pursuit of excess. But the point, and then he goes on and on and on, okay, which is good to read. But the point is that he's saying that if you accustom yourself to superfluities, to things that are not necessary, you'll basically deem them as necessary, and that'll cause you big troubles. So here's my speculative proposition here: is ekabetz mammon means acquiring a lot of money. Ekne masha ani tzarech does not mean meeting your basic needs, because the Rambam would not say that you should try to get the Keser Shel Torah if you don't have food on your table. But what it means is a person who has this infinite pursuit of money that he is justifying by saying like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. And that's ekne masha ani tzarech. Like I really need like 2 cars. I really need like a luxury like jacuzzi. I really need, that kind of thing, and that's me trying to explain the ekne and answer the question about needs. What do you think? Possible? I'm not saying you have to read it that way. I'm saying that it's possible. And also combined with the excessive harshness of im talim machshavos ali bacha, The needs are things that you convince yourself that you need, but you don't actually need. Because things that you actually need, then the Rambam would say that you have to pursue, and that you can get the Keser Shel Torah if you're pursuing what you actually need. What? I'm not giving an explanation to determine that. I'm saying that logic dictates that you can pursue what your body needs and get the Keser Shel Torah, because I don't see how it's possible to live otherwise. And I'm being medayek on ekne, and I'm being medayek on the entire statement of ekbetz mamon and ekne mash ani tzarech, and I'm being medayek on im tale machshavos al libacha, and I'm being medayek on Hilchos tefillah. Let me show you Hilchos tefillah. Okay, this is an extreme diuk, but it's a real one. Let me show you. You don't have to look it up. It's just one phrase. So when the Rambam describes bakashos, he said, like Chazal making bakashos in their the Shemon Esrei. He uses a seemingly redundant phrase, okay, or sorry, not in Chazal Shemon Esrei, in the Doraisa. He says, what is tefillah? He says, this is in Hilchos Tefillah 1:2. Person should be mispala and supplicate every day. And declare the praises of God. Ask for his needs which he needs. With supplication and request. What do you mean ask for his needs that he needs? Just say ask for his needs. So the answer is there's 2 kinds of needs, right? And the English words that we have for them are wants and needs. There are actual necessities, and then there are things that you need, So I'm saying that based on like my reading of all this, that the Rambam is condemning here someone who basically justifies or who thinks that he can get the Keser Shel Torah, but also having unrealistic needs that he thinks he has to like get,
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's one. Yeah. You like what? Well, the pshat, you're saying pshat from yesterday that you just won't be. But this is going not to the low bar. This is uh-huh. Okay, so the thing you have going for you for that is the echzor ve'ekra, which implies that he's putting his learning on hold until he goes back.
Putting that aside to travel. I mean, I'm after learning this more in the video. Also, it's not.
Yeah, I guess I'm until I don't know, until I buy what I need or acquire what I need. Somehow to me that suggests that we're dealing like once you're in the, I don't know, it's just unnecessary to say. So once you're in the realm of acquisitions and once you're juxtaposing it with ekabetz mamon, you know, then I feel like it's some form of excess, you know, some form of superfluity. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go onward now. Ches. Kasu b'Torah lo b'shamayim hi v'lo me'ever liyam hi. It is written in the Torah, it is not in heaven and not me'ever liyam. Okay, and I saw just a note. Okay, I was looking through Kafach this morning on his footnote on this, and he says just note that there is a machlokus between the Ramban and the Rambam on whether sorry, let me back up. He says that the Rambam does not mean kasuv b'Torah, that it is written in the Torah. Okay, Kafach reads it as it is written about the Torah. Okay, I don't know if that's mashma, but he does point out that according to the Ramban, these psukim are not about Torah; they're about tshuva. But the Rambam learns that it's about Torah. So whether or not you buy that reading of kasuv b'Torah, the Rambam is saying that this is about Torah, and that's a different limud than. Yeah. The Ramban learns that whole parsha, I think, is about tshuva. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what prompts him to get that. I don't know. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just repeating what Kappa says. V'lo me'ever liyam hi, and it's not over the sea. Lo b'shamayim hi. Sorry, lo b'shamayim hi. Lo b'gasei haruach hi. It's not found with people who are haughty. V'lo me'ever liyam hi, and it's not found over the sea. Lo b'mehalchei me'ever liyam hi. It's not about people who traverse the seas. This is another thing, by the way. I think this is why I was reading the other thing that way, because the Rambam talks about mehalchei yam as people who are seeking excess. In fact, he mentioned that here, right? That they they will expose themselves to great dangers, for example, by sea voyage, you know, and I think that's the same implication here, that people who like go overseas to try to get extra money because that was such a dangerous thing. Lefikach amru chachamim lo kol hamarbe b'schora machkim. Therefore, they say not everyone who is marbe b'schora, who engages excessively in business, will become wise. V'tzivu v'amru heve ma'at esek v'asok b'Torah. You should diminish your business dealings and involve yourself in Torah. See, this is another raya. Okay, for me. What? Yeah. Yeah, but that's a drasha though, right? Yeah, I think the Ramban. I think so. Yeah.
Just like if you achieve the full pasuk, like in or both it would be usher to listen to posting from Israel.
Because they're brave, Hayam. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Yep, that's why I'm gonna take it literally.
Or maybe we should ignore all the posting in Israel.
Yeah. Okay, so Chaim, what do you say about this? The Rambam is not saying to not engage in schora. He's just saying don't be marbe, and he's saying you should diminish your schora. And by the way, I'm not abandoning what we said yesterday about the pas b'melach tochal. That I'm still there with, which is you should be willing to learn even when you are like in dire situations. But I'm saying that really is talking about like what is your priority of your learning activity when everything else is like going to, you know, like falling to shreds or whatever the expression is. You know, this is more about how do I achieve a work-life balance that can let me get the Kesser Torah, but still be involved in business. And what he's saying is, ekabetz mamon, that's not going to work out for you. ekne mashani tzarech, where you're taking a break from learning, maybe I'll harmonize, taking a break from learning to do this, that is not going to work because then you're not going to have free time. You're going to like stop learning for too long. But being involved in schora, you can be involved in schora, but just not marbeh, and you should be ma'at asik and also Torah, you know. And obviously easier said than done. Like how do you do that is a question. And that's why Chazal used this extreme example. Lum ne'ever leyamhi. Why do you have to say me'ever leyam? Say bashuk. Like don't go to marketplace. No. It's talking about people who like will go on long sea voyages where you're at sea for months or whatever to like risk yourself to try to get like these this excess wealth. I'm saying like these people were at sea for months, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Don't do that, right?
Right.
We're not saying what you should do.
You should learn Torah.
No, you're not saying that to from far, and it's not abiding what it actually means. The way I'm learning is that I'm learning something in already.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain further what that means.
Right. Yeah. So you have that going for you. Yeah. Maybe he'll explain it later.
Okay.
In fact, he does.
Okay.
In fact, he does explain it later. Yeah. Okay. By the way, there's another thing I noticed, which is I don't know what to make of this in terms. This is more of a question on the Rambam's structural decisions. But check this out. In Vav, the first half of Vav is talking about the pain of Torah. Well, I mean, the whole thing's talking about pain, but like half it's talking about the pain, and then the other half is talking about the work. Okay. Then in Zion, it's talking about the work, and then like the like what you involve yourself in for your well, I guess the whole thing is about work, right?
Yeah.
8 still talks about work, but then he transitions to Gasei HaRuach, and then 9 is also talking about Gasei HaRuach and then transition to something else. It's just a weird like half layering thing. It's not like each paragraph is its own topic. I don't know what to make of that. Okay, fine. So what's the idea here? So I guess let's convert that into a question about the Gasei Ruach thing. Why does he even have to bring in the Gasei Ruach thing here? Like, isn't the only part that's relevant Lo me'ever layamhi, Lo b'mahalchei, and then he goes into the Schora thing? Not in people who are haughty. Right? Isn't that like a completely different Indian? Yeah, it does. Let's look at the Rav Makbili. I mean, right, but this is saying that you're not going to get, or that this is like ma'akiv to getting Torah, I guess. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
If you're not middle of the road, I haven't seen at all.
I don't know.
If you're not whatever they call it,
Yeah. Chacham is the middle. Chacham is the middle. Chas is the leaner.
Yeah, if you're not a Chacham, you're not right.
Well, okay, I'll challenge you. Okay, I think that you think it's obvious because like this is a message that's drilled into us, but it's a chiddush that you can't get intellectual perfection without midos perfection. That's a big chiddush that the Torah has. And in fact, if you look at the world definitely doesn't have that chiddush. The world thinks, right? So like I don't think it's so pashut that and not only that, not only does the world not have it, but if you look out at the world, you'll find many people who are very arrogant and very smart and very knowledgeable. But as we'll see, Kesher Torah is not just about the knowledge that you have. It's about a certain perfection that comes from the knowledge, you know. Now, I'm not saying I'm getting all this from Bekius Ruach. I'm just saying like that's why we need to be told that in some form. Yeah, it still is out of place. I'm not answering that question. Yeah, like let's just read the next one, okay? Just to see what the real place is. Divrei Torah, so we can contrast it. Divrei Torah nimshlu b'mayim. Words of Torah are compared to water, okay? Shneimar, as it says, hoi kol tamei l'chol mayim. Behold, it doesn't hoi usually mean woe? No, that's oi. Behold, or hoi, like ahoy. All those who are thirsty come to water. Okay, go to water. Lomer lach mahamayim emis kantim b'makom midron. This teaches you that just like water does not gather on an incline, it like flows from above and gathers below. So too, words of Torah are not found in people who are haughty, and not in the heart of everyone who has a haughty heart. It's only found in one who is literally crushed and lowly of spirit, who wallows in the dust of the chachamim, v'tanugi hasman milibo, and removes lusts and temporal enjoyments from his heart. V'osem malacha b'chol yom, goes back to malacha again. He does a little bit of work each day. Ma'at kedei chayav, a little bit in order to sustain his needs. Refutation. Im lo hayalo ma yochal, if he doesn't have anything to eat. Ushar yom v'leila osik b'Torah, and the rest of his days and nights he involves himself in Torah. So this is the place of the Gas HaRuach halacha, and I think maybe this might answer the question, right? Maybe he only quoted the Chazal earlier, that Chazal say you can't find Torah in Gas HaRuach or in Ever Liam. Then he devotes one halacha to Ever Liam, and then he goes back and explains the Gas HaRuach thing. That would be the easiest explanation. Yeah. So the question now is, what is he adding here about the Parnasa stuff or about the work thing that he didn't already have earlier? Yeah. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is. Yeah. You get a riot from here. Right from here that the Rambam wants us to do more Bekius before we do Eon. We have to finish the parak. Oh. Yeah, that's funny. I gotta quote that. That's a good one. That's like bumper sticker level. Yeah. Yeah. Also, how do you translate lo kol hamar v'skora machkim? Because I would say, like, is it not everyone who is marbe b'schora is machkim, but some people are, or is it everyone who's marbe and schora is not machkim? I just want to look it up. In Pirkei Avos. Yeah, right. That makes sense to me also. Yeah, like there are people who are marbe b'schora and they are machkim. I mean, look at Yaakov in this week's parsha. What? Well, not Schora. I know Schora, right? What was that? Schora? Schora is like trading, right? Like merchandise. No, I just want to know how to read it. Lo kol amar b'skora machkim.
Actually, I guess you're right. It's trading, and it could be a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I was saying you also have the big landowners, which how many?
Yeah, I don't think that's considered schora, right?
Yeah, how many were like were there like big merchant there?
Well, how did Rabbi Yehuda Nasi make his money?
I think he was like I think he was like
That could be also. He did come from a dynasty, right? Rish Galusa, but I feel like he had his own stuff also. Like, yeah, I don't know though. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I can't find it. Let's just look at the Makbili though. See what he adds. So on Ches. Ches. Kasu Torah. Ki mitzvah zos asher anochi mitzvah chayim lo nifleisi mimchav lo rechokahi lo b'shmayim hi lemor miya leilanu hashmayim v'kacha halanu v'yashmenu savana sena. So that's the difficulty, by the way. Is it hamitzvah hazos? So Ramban holds that tshuva is a mitzvah, and he holds that this is talking about tshuva. Rambam does not hold tshuva as a mitzvah. He says it's about kol Torah kula. So he's kind of forced to learn ha-mitzvah hazos is kol Torah kula, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because the previous talk before that is a little kind of saying, Kishma kol Hashem lo kechel yitmor tzitachel go'techa v'juvav v'dei for Torah hazek ki tashuv
Right. See, but it has both of them, right? Is Torah and Kitashuv, right? That's where the Ramban gets it from. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a basis for both of them. ולא מעבר לים היא לאמור מי עבר לנו אל עבר הים ויקח לנו וישמיענו שם נעשנה כי קרב לך הדבר מאוד בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. Okay, fine. So Bagase Ruch is Gava Sanim. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I gotta express my pet peeve. One thing I love about Kafich, other than his translations and his editions of the Rambam, is he uses Rishonik Hebrew. So like he would say here, Baale Gava or Govalev. Gava Sanim is like a modern Israeli word. I works for modern Hebrew speakers. It's just like too much vocab for me. Shehim v'hana osehem him mirkaz chayim. That's interesting. Another raya. Not a raya, but he holds similar to the way I'm doing it, is it's not just the gaiva, it's the lifestyle, right? The hanaos of the so like I pictured when he was saying shekabetz mamon and masha ekne, I'm picturing the guy with like he's got like his unopened sealed in plastic Mishnah Torah and like he has his martinis and I was like, but I gotta like make sure I have enough money to buy my martinis, like before I go into the Mishnah Torah. Okay. Okay, fine. So that's just giving pshat. Let's just read this just to see if you quote any useful sources. Okay, fine. Yeah, based on the context, then it's not people who are literally thirsty, people who are thirsty for the Devar Hashem. Eshborin is shaka ba'adama le'agiras nozlim, a depression in the earth for the gathering of flowing water. As we all know from Pirush Mishnas and Oholos Gimel Gimel, right? Because we learn that every day. Daka ushval ruach anav ma'od. That means very humble. Shemis abik ba'afar raglei hachachamim yoshev linei hachachamim afilu al ha'efer ha'afar umiskaseh ba'avak shel ragleim k'dei lishmoa Torah mipiem. So mis abik ba'afar raglei hachachamim means that you are, number one, subordinating yourself to chachamim. Number two, you're doing it even when it means like in a degrading way, like sitting at their feet, And then is there anything else here? Oh yeah, Tanuga Hasman, Taiva Haba Akev Hanahia Achar Anyanim Chomriim. Okay, Taiva that comes as a consequence of lusting after physical things. Okay, so what do we need to get here? So I'm still curious as to what he's adding from Lo Kol Amar B'Beskor Machkim. And especially the Torah, that's like implicit in everything he said up until now. Obviously, if you have asek, then you should seek to diminish it. And then lo kol amar b'skor and machkim also seems to kind of be covered by if someone who's being mar b'skor, isn't he trying to be a kabetz mamon? So didn't we already talk about this? Okay, I have a possibility. Okay, here's a possibility, and the idea that I'm about to say is true, but you got to tell me whether you think I'm reading this into the Rambam. Okay, yeah.
It's like sharp by the I'll stick with Torah. I was looking in tests.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I hold on a second. Is this? Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you an anecdote, which is a friend of mine has a number of careers. Okay. And he is, dedicated to Torah. One of his careers is he's a Torah teacher. But one of the things is he is what? Yes, that's true. One of the things he is a master of doing is basically in each of the other jobs that he has, doing the absolute minimal possible to maintain prestige in that field. And it's a field that requires prestige, but while dazzling his superiors and making them think that he is giving it his all, his full. Okay. And as a result of this, he's able to live a life where he's making enough money to support his family, but also being heavily involved in Torah, but also having these prestigious careers. Okay, so one of the things I admire about that is it's not just that he is picking an annual income amount and then sticking to that. It's that he's constantly trying to play the game of like cutting corners and doing the bare minimum in order that he can have maximum involvement in Torah. Meaning there's a constant battle to minimize your involvement in other things so that you can be involved in Torah. It's not like you just reach this point and then like say, okay, I got a job where like I can make my money and then I'm just going to coast on this. Is you're kind of like, if I can get out of, or like, here's another example. It's like I was at, I won't say the name. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I was at a certain rabbi's house who happens to be a professor, and he was talking about like faculty meetings, you know, and his youngest son said, like, don't you not listen to any faculty meetings? Like, I guess he just like participates on Zoom and just like doesn't listen, you know? And like, that's the type of thing I'm talking about, is like there are people who will have, they'll go far enough to get a job where they can like carve out learning time and their job time, but then they'll fully immerse themselves in their job and they'll fully immerse themselves in their learning. But then there's the type of person who is involved in learning on the job, and anywhere where they can like get out of a meeting or get out of like an extra thing or like delegate, you know, they will constantly be trying to minimize their involvement in their job so that they can be involved in learning. And that's ma'at be'esek v'osak b'Torah. Yeah. You know who's a master of this? Not with Torah though. Tim Ferriss. That's the whole idea of the 4-hour work week, is that you set up a life where you're making a lot of money, but you set it up so that you only need to put in 4 hours a week. And you know, and that's, you know, and that's, you know, again, that's his most popular, you know, biggest best-selling book that, like, you know, and he does it. I mean, he lives that life, but you know, what was it? Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
What's the method to make a best-selling book?
No, he was doing this before that. There's lots of methods in the book, but yeah. Another person. Oh, here's another one. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna pause this recording. Not unmuted. Re-record. It kind of reminds me of Hilchos Deos, actually, where like there are certain Deos where the extreme is so powerful, you have to go all the way to the opposite extreme of that, of like, you know, anger and haughtiness. Here, the pull into the world of your needs or parnasa or making money is so strong, you have to constantly be fighting upstream to like be mamayed be'esek v'asok b'Torah. Yeah. I don't know the thing about the kol amar b'score. But that what?
That's how I was saying.
Okay. Yeah. I think it fits in here better also. So we'll leave that as the one that needs work. The other one. Okay. 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 So now what is this? Hold on. What's this mashal of the water flowing? Right. It's a weird mashal. It is very poetic, right? He does, but like, remember the whole import of the mashal is to affect the emotions, right? So what emotional impact is this mashal designed to have, where water flows to the bottom and divrei Torah are nimshal kamayim? Okay, what about this part of water doesn't gather on an incline? That's a little weird, right? Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so that good. Right. Okay, so that's good. So in other words, like this. So what it's doing is it's making this into a. You might think that Gasus Haruach as a ma'akev of Torah is a quantitative thing. That if you're very haughty, you're not going to get a lot of Torah. But if you're less haughty, you're going to have more Torah. And if you're less haughty, you're more. What this is saying is no. Any incline is going to prevent you from accumulating Torah. That's good. That's a good shot. Okay. Now we have to ask the question, why? Why is that? And it's you could just say, well, it's what the Rambam said in Deos, but I don't know if that's so pashut, in Deos, he was really talking about, your kofar be'ikr, if you have yeah. Sure. Right. So the learning will adversely affect the act. Sorry, the arrogance will actually affect your learning. Right. That's one. Yeah. That's also true. Right. It's a vicious cycle, right? The learning is going to become that's like the muscle that Chazal use. I mean, I'm not saying it's the same idea, but it's like the Chazal use where they say if you're zocha, the samtem, zocha naselo sam hachaim, eno zocha naselo sam hamaves. That it'll become a poison for you. Like if your learning fuels your arrogance. I want to say something slightly different, which is that because to me, those are both true, but I do think that is okay. I understand. I'm fine. It's true, but I'll say something else. I was going to say that to me sounds a little too quantitative to have this absolutist idea that he's saying here. Like you can't accumulate Torah, because in other words, like this. Let's say I have a little bit of arrogance, right? So if I have a little bit of arrogance, there might be a discussion I'm having with my chavurah where I'm not going to admit that I'm wrong and it'll affect my idea there, but by and large, I'll get Torah. This seems to be going with what you're saying before is like no Torah will accumulate if you have the littlest amount of arrogance, but it might be based, what I'm about to say might be based on your second idea about using Torah to fuel your arrogance, that if you look in the Shalol Lishma, if you go back to Lishma and Shalol Lishma thing that we said before, and Torah is a source of kavod. So then we did say that your low Lishma learning is absolutely worthless unless it's bringing you to Lishma. So the question is what is the learning? What is the knowledge for you? Is it just a means of being great, or is it for the sake of truth itself? But they could say about any low lishma, so that's not going to work out. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So right. Yeah. That's the that I think that's a good approach, right? So if you have gasos ruach in any amount, the knowledge is not going to be real to you. But can we explain how that works a little bit more? Because I think in the lishma thing, it worked in terms of motive. Like if you're learning in order to get the candy bar, then you're distorting the learning. Here, yeah. So what is lacking in the knowledge of someone who's gas ruach? I can give you two mashalim, by the way. I don't know if this is going to help or not, because this is kind of its own question. The Meiri in Mishlei says, when it says ladas chachma u'musar, so there's a bunch of midrashim which talk about why you need chachma and musar. So he gives two mashalim, and I don't know if this is from him or if this is quoting from Mivchar Paninim, but he says chachma below musar. Chachma without musar is like a ring without a gemstone, or chachma without musar is like a tent without pegs. Yeah. Right. Like you got a tent there, that's very nice, but if the tent is not able to be held up, then it's useless tent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The jewel thing seems more like an idea of like ikra chasam in a sefer, like the point of the ring is to display the gemstone and make it an adornment. Right. But it's not, it's right. Yeah.
Also, all leaving the point of the pegs for the 10 was the ring of the gemstone, like the point of the rings for gemstone, and I more would not be inclined to say the point of Torah is from the kind be much more inclined to say Musser's only point is for Torah.
Right, and that is what he says. Actually, I'm just gonna look it up, make sure I got that much right. I don't want to. I know this is not a Meiri Bekius here, but maybe next year. No, I'm just kidding.
That was the part of being done with Robin here. Not gonna be like what in 8 years.
Yeah,
Wait,
more than that.
Right.
wait, are you talking about Musser?
Shlomo Musser, not Musser movement Musser.
Oh, okay.
I never talk about Musser movement Musser. I'm all about.
Not the same.
Let me just see. Taba'as. Yeah, he says, yeah, Chachma below Musar, Ohel below Mesarim. Yeah, a Chachma without Musar is like a tent without pegs. V'amar Acher, Chachma below Musar, Ketabas below Evan. Yeah, I was right. All right, fine. Yeah. Yeah.
The 10th one is the better.
Yeah, so the reason why I brought that in is because we're saying what is lacking in the knowledge that a Gas Ruach has.
I guess I think it comes to our reason. The sort of reason right there. So you can never talk about the. I guess you have no you. I guess it's more so you're such channel with most which goes back more to the through it. If they just needed for Torah, like no purposes for Torah. That on the other hand, it's just became the same thing. So never mind.
Yeah, no, I do think that has merit in it. Is that like if your Torah is only serving your self-image, so then you're not really relating to knowledge as knowledge. Like that's again like the guy who's how mhm. Yeah, I mean, I that might be true. I just don't. I don't know. I'm not buying it. The muscle of, I mean, it does fit in with the being collected, water being collected someplace. I don't know. Let's. I have to go exactly 2:30 today, so it's close enough. Let's stop for today and try to come back to it tomorrow. And I was gonna say one more thing, which I don't remember. All right. See you, Shimon.
Thank you. See you.